Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the retrograde of the planet of relating but also of money, Venus, through the sign of Aries. This begins on the 2nd of March through to the 27th. If you recall, Venus arrived in Aries on the 4th of February. Now, at its best, Venus can be hugely charismatic in Aries, a sign which is very much about initiation. If we think about Venus in terms of relating, the sign of Aries could be about the thrill of the chase, because the passion of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, is very much about taking action. But Venus is perhaps known to be much more coquettish, subtle, charming, and that's where it is in detriment in Aries. So this retrograde does bring another layer of complexity. I'm going to unpack all of this for you. Venus in retrograde in Aries does give us some opportunities. It is going to be forging some amazing links, not least with Mercury, but also the planet of fortune, Jupiter. It's also going to be aligning with Pluto, the planet of change, just as the spring equinox occurs on the 20th. They come together perfectly on the 21st. So we mustn't see the retrograde as only being bad. However, the sign of Aries is known for its courage, its bravery, and its boldness. And Venus is very much to do with how we cultivate. And in some ways, it can make us perhaps a little bit too preoccupied with our particular view of situations. It can also, in a more negative light, see us a little bit impatient if things aren't rattling along at quite the pace we want. It just makes me think of a piece of poetry by a French poet, that patience and the passage of time do more than strength or fury. So whatever situation we're in, whether it's professionally, whether it's around hobbies or interests we've got, or our love life, if we do start to experience some kind of slowing down or delay, it is going to be important to make sure that we try to keep the lines of communication open. Venus retrogrades happen every 18 months. Venus has been direct for 26 days. It's now going to be retrograde for 26 days in Aries. How about that for synchronicity? But of course it is going to rewind back into Pisces, where Venus loves to be. It's exalted. But from now until then, we do have an opportunity to review, to reflect, perhaps appraise our approach to our values, our possessions, our self-worth, but of course in terms of how we relate to. But I would say that the sign of Aries is the first sign, so it's very much about our identity. And Venus can, through its rulership of Libra, be about how we dress, our appearance. For some people, even those dedicated followers of fashion, it could be a time to have some kind of review and maybe also a dazzling makeover. I'm going to unpack all of this for you. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any thoughts, please share them. This is very much a community. If you've yet to subscribe, please help the channel to thrive. Click that sub button, but also the bell notification symbol. I'd like to tell you about a new feature that I'm offering on my website. You can share your time, date and place of birth, but also your current location, and receive your daily personal moon forecast absolutely free. Please see the link below for more. But if you would like to chat with me one-to-one, I am a consultant astrologer. Please check out my testimonials below. Or you can have an astrology video reading. You can ask 2 questions, have your year ahead assessed, or perhaps if you've an upcoming birthday, I can look at your solar return for you. Please see below for more. So we just need to be conscious of the wider astrological picture at the moment. Mercury, about to join up with Venus and Chiron in Aries, has been meshing with the North Node, but critically with Neptune in the heavens in the sign of Pisces. And that is a very tricky influence indeed. If you have been trying to connect with someone recently who may have seemed somewhat unavailable, a bit distant, maybe evasive, or perhaps not clear about what they want, or perhaps you felt that someone hasn't been completely truthful, or even you felt gaslit by them, all of that could be feeding into the thought that Venus going retrograde is the cause of the problem. But Venus in Aries is very much about how we feel. It's always important to stay mindful of how other people feel too. So we could get some extra feedback over these next 26 days with Venus in Aries. And it's important that we are open to receive the message, because I do feel that there have been some really big mixed signals circulating around in lots of different ways, in lots of different spectrums. So if we can straighten things out and be clearer about what we stand for, that's a great thing, whether it is about relationships, professional, personal, within the family, or our friendships, or it is about what we're trying to achieve with our finances. If you are a creative person, and there is something that you're very invested in, you could encounter some frustration over the next few weeks. But I also feel that there may have been some doubts swirling around, but that's all that Pisces energy that's been manifesting for us all. So we do have an opportunity for clarity. So who's going to be affected most by this? Well, Venus begins the retrograde at 10 degrees and 57 minutes, so just into the second decan of the sign of Aries, which is sub-ruled by the Sun, obviously at the heart of all our existences. But if you've got any cardinal planets from 13 degrees all the way down to 0 degrees, Aries, Cancer, Libra or Capricorn, you could be profoundly impacted through to the 27th of March by this retrograde. That's because of the angularity. In terms of Aries itself, it's because Venus is going backwards over those planets. If it's Cancer, it's because Venus is in the part of your situation to do with your career and professional situation. If you're a Libra, it may be about relationships. Even though when I do these videos, people often say, I'm not in a relationship and I don't want to be in a relationship. We all have a relationship with ourselves, and that's critical to remember. But equally, we do interact with different people, whether it's through the internet, our neighbours, colleagues. So we're all having a type of relationship or dialogue, even if it's not an intimate and romantic tie. If you're a Capricorn, it could be to do with something around a property issue, a renovation, some improvements that you want, contractors you need to deal with, or it may be about family relationships. Now, one of the other features of Venus in Aries is the innate passion, but it can make us perhaps a little impulsive. But I just want to reassure you, if you do have Venus natally in your chart, perhaps even retrograde, you may be thinking that because it's technically detrimented, that this makes you weak around relationships. That's not true at all. It's really important to be conscious of what house Venus is occupying. Certainly if you have Venus in Aries in the first house, you are going to be someone who has a dazzling persona. But if you have Venus in Aries in the 7th house, you could actually be someone who's very skilled at relationships. But what about if it is retrograde when you were born? I find that Venus retrograde people are more thoughtful about how they connect to other people, perhaps a little bit less materialistic. And it's possible with Venus retrograde in the natal chart that people don't get connected to people in a really big way until later in their life. They tend to be a little bit less frivolous about relationships, but that doesn't mean to say that anyone who has Venus in Aries that's not in retrograde is frivolous. It all depends on your unique birth map. If you don't know your birth chart, you can check it out for free. by going to my website at www.patrickarundell.com. I'll put the link below and you can download yours for free. But what mitigates this particular Venus retrograde is the fact that Mercury, the communicator, joins up with Venus on the 3rd of March. Now the enthusiasm of Aries here meets the messenger of Mercury in an exciting way. There's a desire to crack on and overcome perhaps some of the slowing energies of the Venus retrograde. But the two are going to meet in a perfect alliance by the 11th of March, and that's a really powerful aspect. In fact, within 3 degrees, which is a very tight orb, they're going to be between the 8th and the 17th of March, very connected. Because Venus can be about money, and therefore it can be about business in a way, and Mercury can be about contracts, don't feel that just because Venus is retrograde, it's all going to be bad news. But also Venus is forging a stunning sextile to the planet of fortune, Jupiter in Gemini, over the next week. Now, when those two are in a very positive alliance, it can bring rewards. Now, Jupiter in Gemini, like Venus in Aries, is detrimented. So it's not necessarily the best sextile you can have, but it's certainly one with promise, particularly with Mercury in the mix. And I also want to tell you that whilst Venus is ingressing, we get to the 20th of March and we have the spring equinox. The major part of the astrological year comes with the arrival of the Sun on that day back into Aries and provides a backdrop for the following 13 weeks known as Cardinal Quadrant 1. And Venus, despite its retrograde, is going to be very close to the Sun. So there's an opportunity there for sure. But by the 21st, Venus is then connecting to Pluto. Pluto in the sign of Aquarius can be more detached, can be a little cooler, but it's definitely about our network, our friendships, our social situation, but it's also about our future plans. So the energy of Venus, the charm, the ability to draw goodness to us, comes from those connections despite the retrograde. So we have some powerful energy developing, which is about initiation, which is what the sign of Aries represents. So the key here really is understanding that if some things are not quite going as quickly as we like, we don't get in a frustrated huff, and that need for action, which can be part of the Aries equation, can see us a little bit more demand orientated, when it's important not to get too caught up with how we see it, in other words self-absorption, and remain mindful of how other people may feel too. So this could be a time when there is some kind of pause, review, reflection around a relationship, but equally it could bring someone into your situation professionally, in a friendship, in a personal context, who could be for the long term. So we need to see the overall astrological architecture of this particular Aries retrograde, and I feel getting away from the misty, rather confusing and enervating energy that we've seen with Mercury combining with Neptune. In fact, Mercury in Pisces, full stop, is not a great transit. So we have had some very hard to read energies of late, and that could mean that there has been some misunderstandings or mix-ups or disorientation, and now we have a chance to reset. So that's the way we need to see this opportunity. I'm going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to now give you a flavour of what you can expect over the next 27 days. I will cover Venus's retrograde through the sign of Pisces from the 27th of March in another video. So Aries, I want to reassure you that a very exciting period is upcoming for you. Not least that there's a solar eclipse, the last in a series, on the 29th of March. And that's going to be followed on the 30th by Neptune moving into your sign for the first time in 163 years. So although Venus slamming on the cosmic brakes is significant, what I think is the bigger picture is the energy that you've been dealing with that is very much to do with the more psychological, emotional and spiritual sphere of your situation. Because ever since Venus moved into your sign on the 4th of February, it may be that you have had a burst of excitement. It may be about someone you've encountered, could be socially, could be around a creative project, a hobby, a business or entrepreneurial strand. But Venus going into the retrograde is perhaps not what has caused the issues that have been permeating in your situation over the last week in particular. And that may have felt like your energy has been incredibly low. And part of the reason for that is the gathering of players in Pisces is seeking for you to release things that no longer serve your greater good. So although all the energy that's going to be developing in Aries, starting with this event, then Mercury joining you on the 3rd, and of course you do have Chiron in Aries too, is a chance to focus on what you need as an individual. That's very much to do with your identity. I feel it's some deeper stuff that may be calling out for your attention. So for example, in the relationship sphere, if you're not sure about someone's sincerity and whether they are truly for you or not, that could be creating some inner energies which aren't helping at all. Now, one of the ways that we can try to deal with issues is to plug on, keep battling away. But I feel that if you can accept that in your situation you are feeling vulnerable in some ways, or a little bit uncertain, or you don't quite know how you feel about a situation, even if you've met someone relatively recently, or started a new business and connecting with customers, or working in a new environment with colleagues, don't be too downhearted if you're feeling that things aren't rattling along at quite the pace you would like. Because you're going to find, as long as you accept some of the sensitivities that are washing around you and stay in touch with them, that actually some really exciting news and connections are possible over the next 10 days. And some of them, quite frankly, could be very lucky indeed. Particularly if you are an ideas person, someone who likes to get on the front foot and be experimental and fresh. But this would, to be honest, be a marvellous opportunity to think about your personal appearance. If you are someone who takes that part of your situation seriously, and you have felt that you've not had quite the luster you would like, if you focus on this, soon you'll be drawing those admiring glances again. Because I feel, particularly if you are footloose and fancy free and you've been open to a relationship, there may have been more than one person showing an interest in you since the 4th of February. But what may have made it difficult to decipher is perhaps the signals from them haven't been super clear. But what you can do with Venus going direct in your sign is decide to take more ownership of what you will do. So if you're not hearing from someone, you're feeling that they're being rather vague, you don't have to accept that. You can create your structure that suits you. And that may mean being more single-minded about what you will or will not accept. But if you are someone who's got some artistic or creative talents that you want to manifest, this retrograde can be a chance to fine-tune them. You may need to do that quite a bit. It may include a complete reset once Venus inverts back into Pisces on the 27th, and early in April you're being asked to be even more in touch with your instincts. The other thing I'd say to you that could surprise you a little bit is you may hear from someone from your past. Now, this could be someone that you went to college or worked with, and they could connect you through social media, and there may be some kind of reunion, which could be really lovely. but you could connect to someone from your past who you were involved with. But I feel the important thing is to understand what their intentions are. So you're wanting to get ahead, you can be very bold and take the initiative. That's one of your great gifts. This is a time to just be conscious of how things feel and how your instincts are informing any decisions that you make. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. Taurus, ever since February the 4th, when Venus moved into your 12th house, you may have been thinking very carefully about your connections to others. A 12th house transit of Venus is delicate, to say the least. It can be a time when relationships do come to a close. And because Saturn, the planet of limitation, as well as structure, has been in your sector of friendship the last couple of years, if there have been some disappointments around friendships, associations, it could be in that arena as much as a romantic tie where you felt a need to be more protective, to just step back a little bit. And I feel that that need, to be honest, is going to intensify over these next 26 days. But don't beat yourself up about it if so. Sometimes we do need to just take a breath, and it's mulling things over quietly and letting our thoughts and emotions just wander a little bit without any expectation helps us just to get more in touch with what we really need. And essentially, Venus in retrograde in the 12th house, but also Mercury joining with Aries on the 3rd, is a time to think very deeply about what you want. And one of the most complex situations in life can be when we're in a situation where we feel it's become a little stale. It's not that it's not got some qualities, but perhaps it hasn't got all the qualities we want. But one of the things you could find yourself craving over these next few weeks is a simpatico, an unspoken connection. That kind of belief that someone, even if you look at them, gets where you're coming from. And if you're lacking that in any kind of connection, the fact that Saturn is your sentry in the part of your chart to do with your future hopes, it's asking you to be more scrutinizing about who you let close to you, and therefore being a bit cautious about who you let into your inner world. So this can be a time when you could develop an alliance with someone in quite a confidential, even secretive way, because the 12th house is about that and Venus is about desire. So if that's where you are at the present time, you may not want to share what's going on in your love life, and totally understandable, but there will come a point where you will have to emerge from that and make some future plans. And if that's the case, I think it will be in the early part of April. But if you're not seeing anyone at the moment, use this time to just really reflect on what would be perfect for you. Set your intentions and start to draw that magic to you. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. Gemini, you have a natural gift for getting on with all sorts of people, and this Venus retrograde can help you to reflect on some of the differences of those in your circle, but it could see new life around your friendship group, around some interests you've got, anywhere where you network, but equally around your professional situation. If some relationships have not been running very smoothly, it may in some ways be to do, uncharacteristically for you, some kind of misunderstanding, but it might not be coming from you. But with Mercury moving into Aries and then stepping forwards and linking to Pluto, the truth of the situation can start to be highlighted. And also because Jupiter and Venus's link over the next week can be very beneficial for you. It's just really the lunar eclipse of the 14th, which could bring in week 2 of March, a time when your professional or worldly responsibilities could be quite a heavy load, and at that point you may be looking towards those people who can be very supportive, collegiate, and understand what you need and the support that's important. But one of the big things about life these days is that people can have very differing opinions. But one of the great things about Venus in the 11th house is to remember to celebrate the things we have in common. So there can be some changes around your connections, your friendship group, your long-term plan, but I feel that there can be more opportunities. But around your professional situation, that's where the potential to collaborate or cooperate is perhaps going to be felt most of all. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. So Cancer, for you, the Venus retrograde occurs in house 10, your connection to the world, but it's the most elevated part of your chart. And because Venus can be about how we feel about relationships, but also about money, there may be some discussions to be had about a job, an interview, a presentation you're going to do, particularly with Mercury joining up on the 3rd. But if you're in a situation where you feel unseen or not particularly recognized or appreciated, the gathering of energy in the sign of Pisces, which continues to be very strong, particularly through the lunar eclipse of the 14th and the role of Saturn, if you don't feel heard, you don't feel the dialogue's very good, you could start to feel that even if you're well paid in the job, it's not giving you the personal satisfaction to feed your soul. So that is entirely possible too. Now, Venus retrograde can obviously make us think very deeply about things, but it's because Jupiter has been in a very introspective part of your chart since last May that has heightened your appreciation of the spiritual part of life and perhaps also personal development. So the link between Jupiter and Venus suggests that if you don't feel enriched in the current situation, and the energy in the sign of Pisces may see you start to research the way in which you can exit out but move into a situation that could be more gratifying for you. And it's going to be by the end of this month, March, and the start of April when all of this becomes clearer to you. But I think in the interim, when it comes to ambition and money and your role in life, there is going to be some rethinking. But when it comes to a relationship, you could find yourself, particularly if you're single, attracted to someone you meet through work or who has got a different age to you. So there could be someone you become much more conscious of who's older or younger, who actually you find intriguing. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. Leo, Venus going retrograde in the 9th house is the sector of truth. If you're in a relationship which lacks it, that's going to be something that is going to consume you over the next few weeks. Now, Mercury moving in will help you to cut through, because recently, the last week or so, things may have felt extraordinarily foggy, particularly around shared finances, or perhaps just a sense of who or how much someone is really committed. So the 9th house can be where we want to escape, we want to have freedom, or we want to feel that the reality of a situation meets our expectations. So any of those scenarios are possible. If you are single or you're looking for a job, it could be that something comes up in a completely different location. So you may start chatting online to someone, and they could come from a much different background to you as well, because Venus is very much about the appreciation of culture. If you're traveling anywhere over the next few weeks, of course, Mercury's retrograde from the middle of March can be problematic. But one of the things you can get until then, particularly on the 11th when Venus and Mercury merge, is go into somewhere where you can really appreciate the history, the culture, the food, as much as soaking up the sun or the snow. So a change of scene could really work wonders at the present time. But equally, if a relationship has really not been working, you may decide to go the single route over the next few weeks and at least have some time out at the very minimum. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. So Virgo, ever since Saturn, the planet of structure but also of limitation, moved into your sector of partnerships and relationships in March 2023, a tie or certain associations have either got stronger or perhaps some have actually finished. But if you have put more in and got closer, when Venus moved into Aries on the 4th of February, that devotion and investment may have become even more profound. Now, Venus going retrograde is not going to change that, but just be aware that that Saturnian energy is going to show itself again in the middle of March on the back of the lunar eclipse in your sign, which provides a backdrop for the following 6 months. So if there is a weakness in a relationship, you need to be aware of it, be conscious of it, but also be prepared to keep working at it, which is what Saturn demands of us all. Now, this can be a business involvement, could be a friendship, and the key is really knowing where each person stands, and that clarity helps a lot. But Venus retrogrades obviously can cause a little bit of uncertainty, but it may be about how money is used as much as the more romantic component. And if that is the case, the fact that your ruler Mercury moves out of the confusing fudge that it's been going through over the last week and applies to the sign of Aries on the 3rd of March is really good news. And if you are seeking some investment, looking to boost the business, there may be some significant news over the next 10 days or so, which can thrill you. So Venus retrogrades don't necessarily have to be bad. But if you're in a time which is perhaps a little bit predictable, has lost its sparkle, doesn't have much passion going on, the Venus retrograde is asking you to try to rekindle that. And the way to do that really is to be a bit more spontaneous. But that's where the energy of Aries can work so well. Taking the lead, being much more prepared to do something outside the framework of the daily structure, which sometimes I think all of us can get a little bit too adhered to, but particularly of Virgo, because that gives you a sense of security. Now, if you are in a relationship where you feel that the other person is very possessive or jealous or controlling, this could be a much more complicated period, particularly with that lunar eclipse. But as ever in life, the challenges that astrology provides can also be the answers too, if we're prepared to go with the process. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. So Libra, Venus is your personal planet, but also in the 7th house. It's that part of your chart where you make connections, where you bring your gift for harmony to bear. But in terms of your ascendant, if your ascendant is later in Libra, say 25 degrees, that means in terms of equal house, only 5 degrees is in Libra and 25 degrees is in Scorpio, and therefore your descendant, which is represented by the 7th house, 25 degrees in Taurus. If you've got an early sun or perhaps an early ascendant, this particular event will be especially profound, I feel. It may be, particularly with all that energy that's been in Pisces, that you feel that you've been very dedicated and thoughtful and practical and done your very best to make a relationship stand up. But if it feels like it is all one-way traffic, This may be a time when you want to use that natural diplomacy, but also the arrival of Mercury, the planet of talk and thought, to articulate how you feel even more effectively. And because Jupiter, the planet of growth and optimism, is in your 9th house, if you could get away from some of those daily chores and the grind, the demands of your work, and spend some time with your partner, that's a great way to embrace this particular process. But your relationships definitely come under the astral microscope in a massive way over the next half year, not least because the solar eclipse, which occurs on the 29th, but also because of the gentle beguiling energies of Neptune nipping into Aries too. If you're born right at the start of Libra, that's going to bring about a much greater idealism in terms of how or who you want to connect to. But that 6th house energy, I feel, has been grinding you down a little bit. And if you're not seeing anyone at the present time, even if you get together with some friends, go and watch a film, a show, a band, perhaps even jet off somewhere for a holiday, a vacation, that can be a tremendous way to use your gift for collaboration, which is a great talent, and that could come very much to the fore at the moment. But in an ongoing time, if you don't feel heard, I feel the lunar eclipse and Mercury going retrograde on the 15th, the heart of this month, you may find yourself making a tough but needed decision. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. Scorpio, Venus retrograde for you in the 6th house can see you thinking about practical relationships. The 6th house can also be our love of pets. If you have thoughts about getting a new furry addition to your home, the Venus retrograde can be a call to action to do something about that. But seriously, if you in any kind of tie are the person who tends to be particularly practically thoughtful, and those gestures, making someone a nice cup of tea, ensuring that the hoovering is done, the washing up's put away, those kind of things, if in your personal situation you do more giving than getting, through this period of the Venus retrograde, it's time to set your boundaries in a firmer way, particularly with the lunar eclipse, which occurs on the 14th. Because with Mercury going retrograde the next day, if things are out of kilter, you could find yourself becoming more irritated and things can actually get more brittle. Venus generally likes to create goodwill, but goodwill needs to be a mutual thing. If it's all give and no get, that won't work for you. And a part of your nature which can be much more fiercely independent is going to come in week 3 of March, when your traditional ruler Mars arcs in an excellent angle to Uranus, the planet of freedom, in your sector of relationships. So you're looking for a little bit more balance between the give and get in any tie or any association you're involved in. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. So Sagittarius, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of attention on the home, emotional, family part of your situation, where you live, how you live there, who with. It's not necessarily been a particularly outward phase. I guess the eclipse series in Aries did give you an opportunity to express your talents and creativity, but Saturn has been quite a profound influence, and it's going to continue to be so through the lunar eclipse of the 14th of March, where it applies to the sun and opposes the moon. So some of your worldly demands are going to be impacted by how you feel. That said, from the 4th of February, Venus came along and started to bring some warmth and sparkle to your interactions, and Venus going retrograde is not going to stop it, particularly with Mercury joining up, and because Mercury and Venus come into that gorgeous 5th house conjunction on the 11th. If you've got talents you want to share to people, that's going to help you to sparkle. But also your ruler Jupiter linking to Venus suggests that if there is someone that you're very fond of, despite the retrograde, actually this set of influences can draw you together as long as it feels right. And that's the lesson that Saturn's been bringing to your situation over the last 2 years. Now, from the middle of this month, Mercury joins up with Venus in the retrograde, and by the end of the month you could find yourself, after a period of interacting more, having meetups, socializing, perhaps there will be some changes of plan. If someone you have been seeing or have been attracted to or are about to be attracted to doesn't quite pass the test in who you would really feel emotionally comfortable with, by the end of the month you may want to draw back a little bit and reflect on everything that's happened. But I feel for you personally that this retrograde is one that has more opportunities than challenges. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. So Capricorn, the Venus retrograde for you is a marvellous opportunity to think about how you approach your home environment. Now, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that could be by remodeling the space. It could be through new colours and decorating, or fabrics or furniture. If you're in the South, it could be that you're going to be thinking more about your outdoor space, even though you're going into the winter. The fourth house could see you wanting to become more mindful of spending time in nature. Venus feeds our senses. The fourth house is very much about our emotional peace. So having a tranquility, being with the people who really matter, is going to be a big part of this Venus retrograde. I feel that you're going to see or spend more time with neighbours, close family, extended family. There could be news of an addition to the family. Venus retrograde could, for some people who are Capricorns, see you consider a move of home or adapting the space in a more significant way, such as perhaps refitting a kitchen or building an extension, that kind of stuff. But essentially, Venus in the fourth house is how it feels. The conversations going on through Pisces, which are going to continue through the lunar eclipse, and the sign of Virgo is more about the dialogue around those feelings. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. So Aquarius, when Venus made its way into Aries on the 4th of February, the Sun was in your sign, forging one of astrology's most fortunate links to Jupiter, the planet of luck. But also Mercury, the communicator, the planet of talk and thought, was in your sign too. So your individual ideas were glowing up at that time. Venus moving into your third house enabled you to express those ideas with a degree of extra elan and charm, and that may have created a very receptive vibe. It's just that more recently the gathering of planets in the sign of Pisces, which will be flagged up again with the lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 14th, facing off with your traditional ruler Saturn close to the Sun on that event. Anything to do with shared finance or different values, it doesn't matter how much we discuss things, if people see things differently, no amount of diplomacy will necessarily change that. So the key with Venus retrograde is actually to just own where you're coming from and be sincere. Mercury aligning in the sign of Aries will help the process. Mercury moves forwards a couple of days, links to Pluto in your sign. Your conviction can still create an impact, but just be aware that some people, however decent you're being, may not necessarily believe your position, which is really challenging. But this is where, if you're sending any text messages or emails or instant messages, just take your time when you're composing them. Don't rush the process. You're going to get some uplift on the 11th of March when Venus and Mercury link, and there could be a breakthrough for you then. The 20th sees the spring equinox. The sun roars back into the sign of Aries, starting the astrological year, and it links to Pluto in your sign, but it also links to Venus despite its retrograde. So that can be a period, the 13 weeks after then, when things can start to flow again. But I think in the short term, be aware that you could encounter people who just see things around money or values very different to you, and it's going to be all about your patience to deal with that opposition or challenge. Please check out your free daily moon astrology forecast based on your unique birth data by clicking the link beneath this video. Pisces, when Venus moved out of your sign and into Aries on the 4th of February, something you've been working on, trying to be creative around, may have started to shape up in a more substantive way. You may have also had an uplift in your income. You may also have found yourself drawn to anything remotely gooey and rather yummy. So if you had set a diet plan for yourself at the turn of the year with your New Year's resolutions, it may have been strained somewhat by just enjoying those things and creature comforts to the full. So the retrograde could see you thinking again about your self-discipline, but it also may trim back how that financial picture had been shaping up. But just know, with Mercury moving out of your sign and into Aries on the 3rd, and also Venus and Mercury linking together on the 11th, that fortune can revive again. But it all is linked to your industry. The more applied you can be, the more perspiration you show, the more you can get a reward. But also Jupiter, your traditional ruler, is in the part of your situation very much to do with your home and where you live. And I feel that Jupiter's link to Venus suggests, because Jupiter in a way has an appreciation of being free and space. If you have got some practical items in your home that you no longer use, this would be an excellent time to let them go, but you can bring in some money by selling them off. You often see on those different digital platforms people selling off old indoor rowing machines or exercise bicycles or benches or massage tables, these kind of things that were of interest and aren't being used. So if you have anything surplus, this would be an excellent time to think about how you can turn that over. You could also think about a hobby or interest you've got and whether that's something that could become something of a sideline, particularly because the lunar eclipse, which occurs on the 14th, angles across the heavens back to Saturn and the Sun in your sign, pushing you in a way to find your inner resources, to squeeze a bit more from your creativity, which is often very strong. So with the energy flowing into your second house, despite the fact that Venus and Mercury will reverse back into Pisces at the end of March, and in the start of April, could see you revisit an idea and in some ways rework it. There still could be a reward to be had, but I think it's about setting realistic expectations, being mindful of your expenditure, being mindful of the calories that you're consuming, but at the same time, if a scheme or idea you've got isn't quite giving you the return you want, keep being patient. You can get there, and it will be later on in April that you will start to see a second round of improvements to the potential around your earnings. But when it comes to our love life, Venus in the second house can be very sensual, but it can also be about values. Values are incredibly important in relationships, whether it's with our friends, our family members, the extended family, because that's what we align around. We don't have to agree on everything, but if those values are good, then that's a great way to bring around cooperation and closeness. So if your values apply well to someone you're interested in, that gives you encouragement to keep being patient about how this may develop, because the second house is all about foundations. There could be a little bit of a pause, there may be some uncertainty, you may have to rewind and go again, But if those values are there, give it a chance because it could go forwards. If those values are not aligning, that could be where you decide to call it quits. And with Uranus and Mars forging a very dynamic link in week 3, but one that's very much to do with freedom, week 3 of March, that could be the time that you decide that you want to reclaim your personal space and independence. It's been a real pleasure being with you, sharing this Venus in Aries retrograde video. Thank you so much for joining me. Please sub if you've yet to do so, and do check out that free daily moon horoscope, that moon forecast based on your personal birth data that you'll get fired to your device each morning by seeing the link beneath this video. Thank you.